My name is Peter Woolley. I'm the provost here at Fairleigh Dickinson University's College at Florham campus and a political scientist. I'm glad to see you here today. Tell me, who has been here on the campus before? A few people, okay. So I just want to make sure that you know the facts. We are a university of 4 campuses, 2 of which are in New Jersey, 1 of which you are on, and 2 of which are abroad. We have Fairleigh Dickinson University in Vancouver, Canada, and Fairleigh Dickinson University in Oxfordshire, England. And I think you should suggest to your sponsors to have the next session in one of those campuses, right? On this campus, we have colleges of arts and science. We have a whole broad range of majors, and we also have a School of Pharmacy, one of only 2 schools of pharmacy in the state of New Jersey. We also have the International Literary Review, which carries poetry from around the world. 4 of its contributors last year won Guggenheim Awards. We have the University Press, which publishes about 35 scholarly titles a year. We have the very reputable PublicMind survey research group that regularly measures public opinion in New Jersey and elsewhere. We also have, of course, a very fine Rothman Institute led by James Baruch. The room you are in, of course, is in the mansion built by Florence Vanderbilt and her husband Hamilton Twombly. You probably know, since you're locally based, that Florham Park actually derives from their name. Florence and Hamilton produced Florham. So this estate was the Florham estate, and they owned much of what is now Florham Park, and so that municipality took the name of the estate. This particular room is a good room for you to meet in. This was the game room. If you go out that door later, just on your left, there is a picture of this room when it was used by the Twombleys. And you'll see in that room hunting trophies, but you'll also see 2 billiard tables. And I think that's apropos because, to me, talking about the economy and talking about economics in general is a lot like billiards, in the sense that there are always, if you play billiards, you know, especially for an amateur, there are always a lot of unintended consequences to what you do. It's not just about missing the ball, right, that you intended to hit, but even if you hit it, there are unintended consequences. Billiard tables are a place with many variables, right? So at one level, you're hitting your cue ball into the object ball and attempting to glance the ball into a pocket. That's hard enough, right? But a really developed player does way more than that, right? The really developed player is not only going to hit the object ball, but he or she is going to leave the cue ball in an advantageous position for the next shot. Now that's pretty difficult. But that's only what a good player will do. The really advanced player will not only leave the cue ball in an advantageous spot for the next shot, but will actually move the other balls on the table at the same time he's pocketed the object ball. So I think when we get into talking about the economy, we're going to be talking about a lot of different variables. And you can do one thing to develop Morris County or the state of New Jersey, and it will have consequences. Not all those consequences are good. Not all those consequences are foreseen. And even if they are foreseen, they cannot necessarily be controlled. So, welcome to the game room, and let's have game on.
Thank you, Peter, for that introduction, and let the games begin, indeed. Welcome to State of Morris County 2012, where our first discussion is on the economy, And it's a pleasure to be joined this morning by, from my left, Esperanza Porras-Field, who's president of the Hispanic American Chamber of Commerce of Morris County, Mayor James Barberior from Parsippany-Troy Hills, and of course Peter Woolley, whom you've met. So as we look at employment or the state of the economy in New Jersey, and what we're doing is, you know, we're moving from state to state. We're getting a read on what people are thinking about the economy, how the trends are looking. I guess many people would say, obviously, you're very blessed in Morris County with the lowest unemployment in the state. I think the current rating that we've got is a 6.5. So you've got obviously a lot of affluent areas. So I would think that certainly from the perspective of having an educated workforce, having low unemployment, things are looking pretty good in Morris County.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Mayor?
Yeah, well, when you speak about Morris County, you got to think about how well run it is. I mean, Morris County for 30 years has a AAA bond rating, and that doesn't happen by accident. It's government running efficiently. Also at the local level, it's government running efficiently. But that doesn't mean, because it's running efficiently, that we don't feel the pain of the economy. We do. I know we do in Parsippany. But that being said, you hit the nail on the head that we are the lowest unemployment, and I think the state's at 9%, and the federal government's at 7.8% now. But Morris County in general, for some reason, seems to be a different beast to the rest of the state. We have a lot of corporate centers here in Morris County, Parsippany being, I think, one of the third largest corporate center in the state of New Jersey. And I see things slipping away at times, and in fact, I created a task force, an economic task force, and I partner with Morris County Economic Development Corporation because although Parsippany-Troy Hills, I think we only lost in ratables in less than 1% last year. If you look at the forecast for the future, we have to really get on the ball.
And we're going to come back to that. Esperanza, can you maybe give us some perspective as to who your members represent and what's happening with your membership and how they're feeling about the economy?
Okay, the Morris County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is composed by all kinds of businesses, small, medium, large. We have some of the 500 Fortune companies in the Corporate Advisory Council as the members. We have the majority is bulk of the businesses are small business. As you said before, the in New Jersey, Morris County is the business destination. Everybody come to Morris County because, exactly like he said, we have in the backyard all the big corporations, so we have employment and relocation opportunities. So that enhance real estate, which real estate is a big part of this whole puzzle. So because people are coming from all over the world to Morris County, that help the economy. Though through the Latino community, we had to diversify ourselves. So a lot of people are bilingual, so they had different opportunities, and they get into different businesses. So now instead of having one business, they had 2 or 3 or 4 in order to survive. We have a lot of small business that are in trouble. We have a lot of new business that start, even though the economy is bad. So we have both in order to help develop the businesses with the Latino market. The Latino market tend to be very faithful. So they bring faithfully. If they buy Goya produce, they buy Goya produce. And they tend to stay with whoever they faithful to the person that are open the doors to them.
Esperanza, you mentioned there are a lot of new businesses starting. Is that because people are thinking this is, they're feeling hopeful about the economy, or is it that maybe they've been downsized or they're out of a job and this is...
A lot of people are downsized, they lost their job, and they're looking for a source of income. And even though sometimes when they come on to open a business, we recommend them not to open the business because as we know, 80% of the new businesses, eventually they don't going to be successful. They don't pay attention to that because really the finances come from their own families. So most of the time they don't go to the bank to get a loan, And so they go to Uncle Paul and Aunt Maria and everybody else put the money together, and everybody in the family take care of the businesses. So they feel stronger about that, and usually it's why they become successful.
Even though they're risking much more because it's their own savings perhaps, or
Exactly,
family
but
savings.
it's like a team working together.
Yeah. Peter, we know that perception is reality often. And in PublicMind, the polling organization you run here on campus, I know you take annual surveys about consumer attitudes, consumer feelings about the economy. What are you finding in the work that you're doing?
Well, we find in New Jersey really a consumer that mirrors the national consumer, and that is that one of the things that we track is people's nervousness about losing their jobs. In New Jersey, even though the unemployment rate is higher here than in some parts of the rest of the nation, and lower here in Morris County than in other parts of New Jersey, people are less nervous now about losing their job than they were a year ago or 2 years ago. So that's a hopeful sign for the people who are employed.
It's funny because that tracks the findings that Allstate Insurance recently did a survey that asked people how they were feeling about the economy. And it was almost a 50-50 split at that point, where people were, 52% said that their financial situation is excellent or good. 46% said it's really fair or even poor. So it seems to be really kind of divided as to, how you're feeling.
Right, that is true. Actually, we do work also for the United Way, which also likes to track families on the brink of financial disaster. That's an organization that tries to help people who have fallen through the safety net and are struggling to get back on their feet. And that's always a very sobering kind of survey because you see people who have been employed, who have lost the job, struggling to keep a house, struggling to pay the mortgage, or have been foreclosed on. In many cases, people struggling literally to get some food for the next day. So the United Way steps in those cases and offers not just food, but job counseling and a plan to get out of your difficulty.
And Mayor, you mentioned your next stop, which maybe follows perfectly on what Peter just said. Why don't you tell us where you're
Yeah, I'm heading over to Peapod. We're doing a presentation to our Parsippany-Troy food pantry. This year alone, our food pantry, which is rarely ever empty, has been emptied out almost monthly. In Parsippany alone, we have a huge diversity of people, and we have 7,000 apartments in Parsippany, where we see an increase in individuals that need help. We've been fortunate enough, though, in Parsippany to have organizations like Sons of Italy, Kiwanis, Rotary, Women's Club, who come to our aid because, we, like last year I explained to you, we had a flood in Lake Hiawatha section, which took out 600 homes. And not only that, people have been displaced in their homes. But that being said, we also noticed that the influx from the apartments of individuals losing their jobs, and the professor said it perfectly, are just looking for something to eat for the next day. And it's increased in Parsippany, but I have to say we're on it. But you can't do it alone, and it's through organizations like the ones I mentioned, and through Morris County as well, that we are able to move forward.
It's one of the interesting things we see in almost every county as we move across the state is the disparity, the level of disparity, usually within a county and even within your town. You mentioned you've got low income versus some very affluent districts. So how do we move past those barriers, those economic barriers, and get across that divide, that chasm, which just seems to exist within counties and across the state? And how do you govern, for example, and set policies that are going to improve the economy for everyone, but knowing that some people need help more than others?
Well, you just do it when it comes up. I'll tell you this, that's a good point. We lost a major company in Parsippany. I think I told you, Realty is leaving. So we formed a committee in our township. We partnered with the Morris County Economic Development Corporation on how can we bring business to Parsippany. Well, one way I'm finding that's been pretty successful is I meet with any future potential tenant or client that wants to come into Parsippany. And I'm going to give an example. A lot of people don't know this, but Parsippany had bear. We had them, but we negotiated, in such a way, because you got to learn one thing about government. It's not that sometimes the economy is bad. They don't want to handle the process of permitting. They don't want to handle the process of zoning. They don't want to get involved in all that and get stringent. But when you work with these companies that want to come in, and then we designated one person to be in charge of all that.
Well, we hear about the culture of regulation and over-regulation in New Jersey.
Right.
So you find that that's really a factor.
It is a factor. But in Parsippany now, because I can speak on Parsippany's half, we do have a huge diversity and a discrepancy in salaries and what individuals make. But for some reason, in our community, everyone seems to pull together. I mean, I got to see that firsthand during the flood. We help just our human services department alone, which is pretty big, are always there for any resident. I have an open door policy. I meet with a lot of individuals that, need help, and we try to place them any way we can. If we can help them get a job, we send them to the county, and jobs are available, but we are continuously trying to help our residents out.
And Esperanza, from your members' perspective, is it easier to deal with regulation? Are there things that government could be doing to make it easier for businesses?
To us, it's a little difficult because of the language barriers. We have people who speak English and people who don't speak English. And some of those people that are in business and they don't speak English, they make a lot of money. So you don't understand sometimes how they do it. But the personalities are very open and very aggressive through making sure that they become successful. And like I said before, family helps. What we do in the chamber is try to make partnerships, new alliances, and we educate the community, and we educate our members, especially with programs such as AA, minority certification. Another big piece of the puzzle is the new free trade agreements like CACTA, NACTA, TLC. We educated our members on the international trade agreements so that people can interact internationally. I see a lot of our members making money through different countries because of the internet and the technology. Today the world is global, so you don't have to be in China to make business with China, and you don't have to be in Colombia to make business with Colombia. So people becoming very diversified in businesses, and there's a lot of big opportunities out there if they educate themselves about different kind of products and agreements and technology. So what we do is we focus on educating.
How large is the Hispanic population in Morris County?
Morris County, you're talking about in general the residents or business community?
Business community.
The business community, right now we have 1,200 members in the chamber. The majority of our members are Latino, though we have everything. We have Indians, Chinese, we have Italians, we have, anybody can be part of the Morris County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. But the majority are minority from all countries, Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala, Colombia, and I will say we have about 7% of the Morris County population is in business.
And the Hispanic market is certainly the largest emerging market in America. So do you think Morris County is really poised to take advantage of that?
I think Morris County is not really taking advantage of that. People in both sides still need to be educated about, and they still had to cross the bridge. A lot of people are afraid to get to know the Latinos. The Latinos are afraid to know the Anglos, and so on and so on. So that's why we create different programs like such as the one I just give you, networking, some mixers, so that way both sides get to have the opportunity to know each other and do business with each other. And also the language barrier, that stops people to communicate. But we're doing a lot of joint ventures. Tomorrow, the Colombian Consul from New York and New Jersey is coming to Morris County to meet people in order to have opportunities with the international trade agreement. So they mobilizing all the different consuls to introduce the countries to the community.
So there's a lot of outreach.
It's an outreach, yeah.
And Peter, let me ask you, you obviously do statewide polling, but you're here in Morris County, and you've been here for a while at Fairleigh Dickinson. What's your sense of Morris County? Is it atypical from the rest of the state, or why is the economy so good here and so strong?
It is definitely not typical of the rest of the state. We've had a lot of corporations move westward from New York and settle here in Morris County. You don't have to go far from this campus, really across the street, to see a number of corporations that have resettled here. You have BASF, with a brand new headquarters for the German chemical company, literally right across the street. And behind that, the New York Jets, which are apparently really a New Jersey team.
So they say. They don't say, but I guess we all think that.
And there are many other plans for development of corporate headquarters. It leads me actually to ask a question of the mayor, if I could.
Sure.
And the question I'm going to ask is about whether it would be smarter to move more planning decisions and zoning decisions to the county level from the local level. Because the mayor mentioned just now that Rheology left Parsippany, and that was a big blow to your ratables, I'm sure. But they went to Madison. So they're right down the street here, or they will soon be right down the street here, in a brand new building, which was vacated in turn by Verizon. And that really hurt Madison.
Right.
So Parsippany's loss, in a way, is Madison's gain. And I'm sure Madison was very accommodating to your loss.
Mayor, what's...
Let me just develop that out a little bit more.
Okay.
Because the other consequence we see as a Madison resident is the impact on traffic. So on the one hand, I'm sure we're all glad to have these ratables in Florham Park and Madison, who are neighbors. On the other hand, you got to wonder how many of these can you put in, right? And not use up the infrastructure or damage the quality of life for people here, either in terms of just automobile exhaust or slowing down everybody's commute very significantly. And yet those decisions are being made not at the county level, but at the municipal level. And one last example, for a university like Florham Park, we also have to go through permitting at the local level. And it delays our projects 6 months, a year, sometimes longer, because we have to go through that at the local level. And for a university, we don't really quite have the luxury that, say, Rheology has, that we can pick up and leave.
You're here.
And go to Parsippany. Yeah, we're pretty much here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know, we can work something out, you know.
Mayor,
what's
I'm going
your...
to respond to the first question of having the zoning and planning go to the county. I would never be in favor of that. Not because of control, but because of knowing there's a lot of responsibility to come with the permitting process. And I wouldn't want anybody outside the township to make a decision that can affect Parsippany-Troy Hills in a way, as you said, traffic. Let's face it, if you have traffic, you have business. And that's a good point you made, Professor. There's consequences to having these buildings. But Rheology didn't leave Parsippany because they didn't like Parsippany. They left Parsippany because they wanted to have a LEED building. They wanted to have a different style building.
LEED certified.
Yeah, LEED certified,
Yeah.
and that building didn't offer that. And we're not the landlord to the building. So that's one of the reasons why, the main reason why they left. Because then you save on energy costs and all that kind of stuff. But the permitting process, to me, belongs with the municipality. Perfect example, the state wanted to take inspections away from inspecting apartments and houses from townships. They could charge a $50 fee one time a year. But what happens when you have to go in there, you have safety issues, welfare, safety issues like that. The township has to be able to enforce those things. And Parsippany being a very large community, we need to have that type of control. And I have to tell you, the process of permitting in Parsippany, in my opinion, has really, it's turned the corner. Like I said, I had those meetings with the Morris County Economic Development Corporation, and they brought in in that meeting we had with the township, they brought in all the commercial realtors, and they vented about Parsippany, and I heard it. And they said, you know what, if you could speed this up, speed that up, it would help out greatly. And that's what it takes. It's an outreach. You have to listen to the...
Do you think a township has more flexibility than the county would have when it comes to streamlining regulations?
Yes, well, not just that. You could bring it to the county, and at the end of the day, the state controls everything, especially when it comes to your construction official. Even though they work for the town, they answer to the state.
Let me switch gears for just a second. And go
Can
ahead.
I add to about rheology? I'm very close to rheology. I am a real estate agent as well. And of course, rheology is my home. The reality is that the building was too big, and to heat that building was very costly. And today, because of the technology, you don't need so many employees, and you don't need such a big buildings. That's why people are vacating all these buildings, because now, like my daughter, she's the director of public relations and marketing for a company. What her boss did, give her a telephone, a computer. So you can work for your truck or from your house and for whatever you want. You go to the office for a meeting, and that's it. So the globalization and the technology has been changing the way we used to do things. Therefore, we have a lot of foreclosures, a lot of short sales, and that's impacting the economic of Morris County as well the whole United States. And until we don't finish with all short sales and foreclosures, we don't go on to really be successful in the economic development of the country. Also, in town, Morristown had to do a lot with immigration. When Mayor Crisitello tried to implement 287G, he changed the ordinances of the town that when somebody live in the house, they rent the house for 6 people, he changed it for 4 or for 3. So when you went to rent it again, you couldn't. Because you have a house that when you got your CO, your certificate of occupancy to move into the house for 6 people, you could rent it for $2,500. Now the house is only for 4 people. Now you had to rent it for less. So a lot of people lost that income, rental income, and now when they go on to rent the house, they cannot afford to pay for the mortgage. So that affected very big. And so a lot of people lost their house or they had to move.
And your point that you made earlier actually is a great segue into where I want to go. You point about with technology, increased technology, fewer employees in general, corporate headquarters are kind of looking at a downsizing. Now the state plan, the new state master plan is really about driving businesses into the cities and re-energizing, revitalizing our cities. Morris County has been rich in corporate headquarters. You guys have all the good corporations here. As a Somerset County resident, I'm envious sometimes. But the way trends are going, do you think that's going to continue? And how does a county like Morris, that's made its fortune, based on this corporate base here, how do you deal with the changing trend? Sure, take it away, Mayor.
Actually, we're handling it right now. We see the downsizing that commercial buildings and office buildings. I mean, Parsippany alone, we lost Rheology, and we're looking at what's our percentage of vacant properties going to be in the future. Okay, so what's that tell you? In Parsippany, we don't have a town center.
Right.
We don't have any type of...
like many towns in the county,
yeah,
right?
A lot of towns have town centers, and that's a driving force to bring actually business in, to be frank with you. But we do have a great transportation hub. We have a great core. We have the Interpace Parkway. We have 400 campus. We have a lot of great areas in Parsippany. But at the same time, Parsippany has to look at things a little differently. I'll give you a perfect example. We have, hopefully have Whole Foods and Target coming to Parsippany and a piece of property across the street from our police department. And then townhouses, because of our housing stock, has to be increased. We have 72 townhomes. But it's going to cause a problem because, like the professor said, people are still concerned about traffic. But this is something different for Parsippany. We don't have a Whole Foods. We don't have a Target. We don't have anything like that. Family entertainment centers, where they have a restaurant, a movie theater, a bowling alley. Parsippany doesn't have that as well.
So are you looking at those as their enticements for, you need them because of the ratables, or you need them because you need to have them to keep your
Ratables,
residents?
you always need, listen,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, as a mayor, you always need ratables.
Yeah.
Because when you lose ratables, your property taxes go up. The difference between businesses and townships and counties, we run based on a 2% property tax cap.
Right.
So everything has to stay within that cap. So every time you lose a commercial property, it affects your cap. And then what happens, the things that we're saying now we want to service, we might not be able to service in the future. But we have to stay within those boundaries, which is fine. We have to do that. But in Parsippany, we're very aggressive though, even with the commercial properties we have now. I mean, I meet with each, realtor, and they pretty much tell me everything that, they see forecasts of what's going to happen and they need. And we still have a few more meetings to go. And one thing I will say, Parsippany-Troy Hills, CNN Money Magazine rated Parsippany-Troy Hills the best place to work, live, and raise a family. #1 in the state and number 15th in the nation. And that doesn't happen by accident.
And Esperanza, I know you want to make a point, and I want to get back to you, Professor.
I want to make a point about what's happening in commercial real estate. The other day I was working with one of my customers about commercial space. And from Morristown Hospital to the Green is 28 spaces empty. Now what I see is that the owners, they don't rent in offices any longer. They rent in office cubicles and spaces. So that if you have a company of 10 and you need 5 cubicles, so that's what they're renting. Because you cannot afford to have these buildings empty any longer. That's in reference to commercial. In reference to the small business people, a lot of people are going into multi-levels. It's a lot of companies offer all kinds of multi-level with energy, with all kinds of products. So people who don't have the diversification or the education to go into different fields, so the easy way out is to represent a company that has been already established and has a product that is going to give you some residuals or some income. So that's how I see it. And in real estate, we had the problem again with the foreclosures and short sales, and we still have people uneducated about, and they don't know how to get out of, and the banks still don't have the educated people to deal with the problem. So when you call a bank, they give you the around, and one foreclosure or one short sale that should take 3 months is taking 3, 4, or 5 years.
So clearly there's already an impact here, on this trend to move out of the county businesses that are being lost or moving out. What about the long term? How does Morris County and how does suburban New Jersey in general, because Morris isn't the only suburban county, if the trend now, if the plan is to revitalize the cities, that's great, but does it come at too big an expense for areas like this?
Right. I think the question implies the possibility that economic development is a zero-sum game. That somehow if we develop in one place, that it's going to arrest or slow down development someplace else. I think that's not the case, especially in New Jersey. And in New Jersey, we've made a big mistake over many decades not investing in the big cities in this state. It's been, and the consequence of that, it seems to me, is that it's been a drag on the rest of the state. So I think the state master plan, in its attempt to drive new business and economic development into the established cities in New Jersey, is very smart. If Newark thrives, Essex County will thrive. If Newark thrives, actually, it will be good for Morris County. If Patterson thrives, it will be good for Passaic and Bergen. If Elizabeth thrives, it will be good for Union County. And it will actually be to the benefit of Morris and many other counties, because it will alleviate some of the financial burden that people in the suburbs have been carrying for a long time to provide services in the big cities.
That's certainly true in a big picture sense, but in a short-term sense, if everybody, if Honeywell and Bayer and everybody else suddenly decide, let's go to Newark, let's go to Patterson, what happens in the short term for a county like Morris County?
Well, the short term, I mean, 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 the short term, I
Well, if that were a development, I think that would be, could be problematic if you couldn't replace the business. But I would still say, I think that's less likely than the upside of the scenario. That you're going to have new businesses come in or old businesses expand and settle in our old cities and provide them with more jobs and more reason for people to come to New Jersey in general.
So you see a trend towards people staying in new businesses that will really attract new businesses into the cities versus shifting the existing businesses in the suburbs?
Well, I think that's the ideal state, that you have new people investing in the state, or you have existing businesses expanding their places of business already. But not so much a zero-sum game as it would seem Reality was, where it left Parsippany and came to Madison.
And what's your sense, Mayor, as you work with the county as well in terms of planning, long-term planning?
Well, I want to get, if I can,
sure.
What the professor said in regards to Realty and other companies going to into the cities, excuse me. I agree with the professor. If Parsippany, the county, is a transportation hub, and they're going to come here if they really want to come here. One of the things that can affect the township, though, is when you have the state getting involved, meaning that they're going to give them a certain amount of funding.
Right, economic incentives.
Yeah, incentives and stuff like that, where a town like Parsippany by no means could get that type of incentive program because we're considered affluent when, in essence, we're probably the most diversified town in the whole county. But that's better than losing these companies out of state.
Right.
And that's how you have to weigh it. Like when I got the question asked me about Realty, well, they're still in Morris County. And that helps Morris County, helps Parsippany. Exactly what the professor said. There's always a trickle-down effect. Even if Parsippany doesn't get a company, but someone in the county does, it does help Parsippany, and vice versa when we get a... I have to tell you, the professor hit something right on the head there. If you build their cities up, you know, and they have it, because the suburbs have been funding the cities for a long time. A perfect example are the Abbott districts for schooling and stuff like that. I mean, Parsippany-Troy Hills alone, we have 7,500 students, and we receive the least amount of school aid from any town in the county by far. We received, in 2010, we went from receiving, I forget, $2,500 per pupil to $149 per pupil. And then what happens there, who has to make the difference up? The taxpayer has to make the difference up. So the professor makes a good point that if you can build the cities up, less dollars in aid going to the cities, it can come back to the suburbs. And I think that's important. And I think that was an excellent, point of view that the professor made. Because even though I don't control school boards, I still get blamed for the taxes.
Exactly. It's all local.
Right.
Yeah.
I think entrepreneurship is the heart of the economy and will continue to be the heart of the economy. I think the entrepreneurs will continue to grow. I think China is very close to do more and more businesses with the Latinos. I see a lot of international trades and an international missions to all these countries, and the Lieutenant Governor has been talking to us in the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and her focus is to bring businesses to New Jersey and all the entrepreneurs. There's a lot of people all over the world who will like to do business with the United States, and especially in New Jersey. So people will become diversified, and we need to support the entrepreneurship.
So from your perspective, you're looking more and more to global trade.
Yes.
So it doesn't really matter who's down the block or...
No.
Yeah, because you're looking outside of that anyway. So we're almost out of time, but let me ask each of you to do a closing point, if you would. Given, obviously, I'd like to see a better national economy, things like that, but from your perspective, what's the best thing that you could see happening that you actually have some control over in the town or in the county that would boost Morris County's economy specifically in the coming year? Is there a policy that needs to be put in place, or Esperanza?
Well, the best thing happened to the country, to the county, is that we still have a lot of tourism. A lot of tourists come to Morris County because Morris County has a lot of history. You know, Morris County, we had Santa Claus was born here, George Washington was here, and you know, the symbols of the Democratic and Republican Party was here. So we have a strong history, and lots of people come here, and all these corporations are bringing a lot of people. So the relocation is still strong, and relocation may really stay strong. And people become diversified, which is the more interesting part. You know, now the lawyers are looking into getting into the multi-levels, and now the doctors are looking to see what kind of partnerships they had to invest the money with somebody else, what country they're going to do business with. So when we have problems, always will be a window for entrepreneurship, and that's very interesting.
So active marketing and active outreach is really vital, and it's
Yes.
vitally important for you all. Mayor?
That's for Morris County, and I can speak on behalf of Morris County.
Oh,
So I'm
you're the
living
only one
it.
here, so go for it.
Morris County, the government, I'm going to talk about the freeholders, and they've been very proactive in business and keeping businesses in Morris County. I can tell you firsthand, freeholder Murphy in Morris Township, Watson Pharmaceutical was leaving Morris Township. But he met with me, we sat together, and they went to Parsippany. I mean, he's losing, you know, like revenues for Morris Township, but his dedication to keeping the business in Morris County. And I have to tell you, the freeholders that I know and the Morris County Economic Development Corporation, I took advantage of those two, especially the Morris County Economic Development Corporation. They are fantastic, and they have a lot of knowledge. Now, I'm no economic expert like the professor, but one thing I can do is choose people who are. And they have done a wonderful thing for Parsippany and for the county itself. They know how to, they know what needs to be done, and as long as that continues, a well-run government, I think you're going to have these companies stay here and thrive.
Great. And Professor, we'll give you the last word.
One thing I think we should consider in Morris County and much of the rest of the state is public schooling and charter schooling. People find, as they're moving their families and they're raising their families and they're looking for a career and looking for a place to settle, that they're drawn to places where they have a lot of confidence in the schools. New Jersey is really a checkerboard when it comes to schooling, right? There are really great school districts, many of them right here in Morris County, and there are really lousy school districts in New Jersey, not here in Morris County. And whether you're for or against charter schools, the real point of charter schools is that a lot of rules have crept up over the years regulating public schooling, and maybe some of those rulings and rules have to be revisited to unleash the potential that's there to develop public schools. Right now, in Morris County, as good as these schools are, they're little fiefdoms that have nothing to do with one another. Just as there's local control over permitting and building, there's very hyper-local control over schools. I'm not sure that's entirely a good thing or altogether in the interest of the parents and the students. And some of those things might be revisited. Why can't a resident of Madison go to a high school in Morristown if that offers programs that are not offered in Madison and vice versa?
So from your perspective, and making sure that the local education system is strong, it's certainly Morris County has more college-educated residents than any other county.
That's
in the
right,
state.
and college-educated people demand good schools. And I don't think it's really about putting more money into the schools. I think it's really about being smarter about how we run them.
And on that note, that's a perfect setup for our next conversation on education. But let me thank you all for joining me this morning to discuss the economy. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Great to see you.